The aroma of stale coffee and desperation clung to Aisha Sterling like her diner uniform. Another spilled order from a rude trucker. Another mental tally of bills, confirming the inevitable. Eviction loomed. Her 6-year-old twins, Maya and Leo, slept soundly in the staff room, oblivious to how little stood between them and the streets. A shadow fell across the counter. An old trucker, Silas, leaned heavily on the doorframe, his face ashen, eyes sunken. "Table 5, he rasped, his gaze fixed on Aisha. "Your section, I think." Aisha frowned. Her shift was almost over. "Sir, I'm about to." But Silas cut her off, his voice a strained whisper. "Just coffee, and make sure it's asterisk you who brings it." His eyes darted nervously around the half-empty diner, a quiet urgency in his gaze that sent a shiver down Aisha's spine. Silas collapsed without a sound, his coffee cup clattering. Aisha rushed forward, dropping to her knees. "The ledger," he choked, his breath ragged. "The interstate, don't let them win. Protect the kids." His hand, surprisingly strong, pressed a worn, leather-bound case file into her trembling fingers just before his eyes went vacant. Brenda, the diner owner, barreled over, her face a mask of shock. "Silas, what in the—" But he was gone, leaving only silence and the heavy case file in Aisha's grip. The local police officer, a beefy man named Jenkins, dismissed it all with a shrug. "Looks like a heart attack. Happens all the time on the road." But Aisha knew. She'd seen the subtle, almost imperceptible nod Jenkins exchanged with a shadowy figure lurking outside, a figure who melted into the pre-dawn gloom as quickly as he'd appeared. A cold dread seeped into Aisha's bones. This wasn't just a trucker's death. She clutched the case file, its unexpected weight a tangible burden. Back in her cramped apartment, the children finally asleep, Aisha examined the old case file. Nothing remarkable, just faded paperwork, but her former software developer's instinct, dormant for too long, pricked at her. There, a hidden latch. It clicked open, revealing a small, leather-bound ledger. As her eyes scanned the neat, precise entries, names, dates, routes, illicit payments, a chill deeper than the late-night air consumed her. Human trafficking. Bribes to judges and city officials. The ledger was a meticulously kept record of pure evil. The harsh, fluorescent glow of her laptop screen was a cruel counterpoint to the soft light of dawn filtering through Aisha's apartment window. She hadn't slept, couldn't. Silas's worn ledger lay open on the scratched kitchen table, its stark entries casting a long shadow over her already fragile life. All night, Aisha had cross-referenced names and dates from the ledger, with news articles, archived court documents, and local government reports she pulled from her old laptop. The connections were chilling, undeniable. Judges, city council members, police captains, names that commanded respect in the community were listed alongside illicit payments and cryptic codes for shipments. This wasn't just a human trafficking ring, it was a deeply embedded criminal enterprise, rotting the city from the inside out. A soft rustle from the next room announced Maya and Leo's waking. Maya, her hair a wild halo, stumbled into the kitchen, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Mommy, why are you up already?" she mumbled, her small voice cutting through the thick dread in the air. Leo, ever observant, followed, his gaze drawn to the glowing screen and the open ledger. Aisha's chest tightened. "Protect the kids." Silas's dying words echoed in her mind, no longer a vague plea but a searing command. Her children, innocent and oblivious, were the reason she couldn't walk away. They were also the reason she couldn't fail. A few hours later, the scent of stale grease and lukewarm coffee hung heavy in the diner's cramped back office. Aisha had managed to get a few hours of sleep while Brenda covered the morning rush, but the exhaustion was etched deep in her face. She cautiously pushed the ledger across the cluttered desk toward Brenda, explaining Silas's last moments, her voice hushed. Brenda, a woman whose face was a roadmap of every late-night shift and tough decision, picked up the leather-bound book with a wary finger. Her eyes scanned a few entries, then snapped up to Aisha's. "Trouble, Aisha," Brenda said, her voice gruff, devoid of its usual diner cheer. "That's trouble you don't want, bigger than eviction notices, bigger than this whole greasy joint." She pushed the ledger back. "You go to the cops, you'll be in a ditch by morning. You try to fight it alone, you'll be worse than alone. The fear in Brenda's eyes, a hardened woman who'd seen it all, was a stark reminder of the syndicate's pervasive reach. It wasn't just individual criminals. It was a system, a shadow hanging over everyone. Aisha felt a knot of frustration tighten in her stomach. She knew Brenda was right to be afraid, but what other choice did she have? Night fell again, painting Aisha's apartment in shades of blue and gray. The eviction notice on the fridge seemed to mock her, but her focus was elsewhere. Her old coding textbooks, once symbols of a forgotten career, were now stacked beside her laptop, their pages dog-eared with renewed purpose. Aisha retrieved them, dusting off years of disuse. Her fingers, usually nimble over a diner order pad, now flew across the keyboard. She was a software developer, a problem solver, and the ledger was the most complex, terrifying problem she'd ever encountered. She began to digitally trace the shell companies, the anonymous bank transfers, the burner phone numbers Silas had meticulously recorded. It was like peeling back layers of a corrupted onion. Using open-source intelligence, social media archives, and obscure financial databases, she unearthed small, unsettling confirmations. A seemingly innocent trucking company registered to a P.O. box in a different state, linked to a network of warehouses along the interstate. A judge's sudden acquisition of a luxury car, just weeks after a specific delivery, was logged in the ledger. Each connection, each verified detail, sent a fresh jolt of unease through her, but also a surge of reawakened purpose. Her old skills, once used to optimize corporate algorithms, were now being wielded as a weapon against darkness. The lunch rush was a blur of clattering plates and shouted orders, but Aisha's senses were on high alert. Her internal radar, honed by sleepless nights and the ledger's grim truths, pinged a warning the moment two men in impeccably tailored, expensive suits entered the diner. They stood out like oil stains on a clean tablecloth. Their eyes, cold and assessing, swept the room, lingering on Aisha for a beat too long. They cornered her by the coffee machine, their smiles thin, their voices low. Heard old Silas passed. The taller one drawled, his words laced with a subtle menace that made Aisha's skin crawl. Any idea if he left anything behind? A package, perhaps? Aisha felt a tremor start in her hands, but she forced herself to meet his gaze. Her face a carefully constructed mask of ignorance. Silas? Just a regular, quiet customer. Didn't seem to have much. Before they could press further, Brenda appeared beside Aisha, her presence solid and surprisingly defiant. Anything wrong, gentlemen? You looking for a menu or just staring at my best waitress? Brenda's voice was sharp, cutting. The enforcers exchanged a glance, their cold smiles tightening, but they backed off, their message delivered. They were watching. Back in her apartment, the quiet hum of the refrigerator was the only sound. Aisha watched Maya and Leo sleep, their small forms curled under worn blankets. The earlier encounter in the diner had solidified everything. Running wasn't an option. The syndicate knew her, knew about Silas, and would find them wherever they went. Silas's last words, asterisk protect the kids, asterisk reverberated in her chest, a silent vow. Her tech background, once a dead-end career, combined with Silas's ledger, now presented a terrifying but undeniable path forward. It was a weapon she never knew she possessed, a shield she could build. The thought was daunting, heavy with responsibility, but also empowering. The fear was still there, a cold knot in her stomach, but beneath it, a fierce, primal determination had taken root. She wouldn't be a victim. She would fight. For her children, for Silas, for every innocent life trapped in the syndicate's dark network, she would find a way. The aroma of stale coffee and desperation clung to Aisha as she sat hunched in a corner booth of an anonymous coffee shop, miles from the diner. The burner phone felt cheap and flimsy in her hand, a stark contrast to the sleek devices she once coded for. Each call was a fresh blow, chipping away at the fragile hope she clung to. "Local precinct, how may I direct your call?" a bored voice drawled. Aisha, her voice carefully neutral, reported a potential human trafficking ring, referencing the ledger's vague details about interstate routes and a suspicious truck stop. The officer chuckled. "Lady, we get calls like this every week. Sounds like you've been watching too many documentaries." Click. "Next, a state agency, then a different city's hotline. The pattern was infuriatingly consistent. Dismissive tones, bureaucratic jargon about lack of verifiable evidence, and then the thinly veiled threats. "Are you certain you want to get involved in matters beyond your pay grade, ma'am?" a voice had asked, a chilling undertone that made Aisha's blood run cold. She clutched the phone tighter, her knuckles white. Silas's ledger wasn't just a record of crime, it was a map of corruption so vast it had infected the very systems meant to fight it. The world felt smaller, more dangerous, and terrifyingly isolated. Hours later, Aisha found herself in the sterile, impersonal environment of an FBI field office, the harsh fluorescent lights doing little to calm her frayed nerves. Through a deep web forum, she'd found a single, anonymous contact, which led her here, to Agent Morales. He was a man in his late 40s, with keen, analytical eyes that seemed to take in everything and betray nothing. He listened, impassive, as Aisha recounted Silas's death, the ledger, and the veiled threats. "Miss Sterling," Morales said, his voice calm and measured, "we appreciate tips, but this sounds speculative. We get a lot of conspiracy theories in this line of work." Aisha's heart sank, but she refused to break. "I have names, Agent, dates, license plate numbers. Not the full ledger, not yet, but enough to corroborate a pattern." She slid a flash drive across the table, containing a meticulously compiled list of data points from the ledger, cross-referenced with publicly available information. Morales picked it up, his gaze unreadable. "This is a lot of effort for a waitress," he observed, a hint of professional curiosity finally stirring in his eyes. Aisha met his stare. "I used to be a software developer, Agent. And I'm a mother. I don't have the luxury of giving up." Back in her apartment, the silence after the FBI office felt heavier, filled with unspoken anxieties. Maya and Leo sat at the small kitchen table, absorbed in their drawings. Maya held up a crayon sketch. "Mommy, why do you look worried all the time? I drew a scary truck for you." It was a crude drawing of a semi-truck, its grille an angry frown, its wheels menacing circles. Aisha's throat tightened. Her 6-year-old was picking up on her fear, manifesting it in innocent art. Leo, always more observant, looked up from his own drawing, a detailed schematic of a fantastical robot. "Mom, why are we always staying inside? And why can't we talk to strangers anymore? Are those the new rules?" Aisha knelt, pulling them both into a tight hug, burying her face in their soft hair. "No, sweethearts, no. Mommy's just being extra careful. Like a superhero protecting her sidekicks." She forced a smile, but their innocent questions, their awareness of the subtle shift in their lives, weighed on her. It was a potent reminder of what was at stake. She wasn't just fighting for justice. She was fighting for their carefree innocence, their future. Late that night, Aisha's cramped apartment hummed with the quiet glow of multiple screens. Her workstation, once a corner for job applications, was now a makeshift command center. Old coding textbooks lay open beside her laptop, their pages dog-eared. She felt a familiar thrill, a reawakening of the sharp, analytical mind that had once been her professional pride. "Time to put those expensive degrees to work," she muttered, a grim smile touching her lips. She dove into the digital abyss, accessing obscure databases, deep web forums, and archived corporate filings. Lines of code scrolled across her monitors, a language she spoke fluently. The ledger, open beside her, guided her like a dark compass. She traced shell companies to offshore accounts, cross-referenced names with leaked data breaches, and analyzed encrypted communication patterns. Each click, each verified connection, was a grim triumph. She uncovered a web of financial fraud, political payoffs, and disturbing logistical details that corroborated Silas's entries perfectly. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, fueled by a focused intensity that pushed exhaustion aside. This wasn't just data. It was proof, and it was her weapon. Aisha leaned back, a grim satisfaction settling over her as the final piece of the digital puzzle clicked into place. The syndicate wasn't just local. It was a complex network spanning multiple states, deeply entrenched and ruthlessly efficient. Just as she was about to save her findings, the burner phone on the table vibrated, an unknown number flashing. Her heart lurched. She hesitated, then answered. A voice, distorted and chillingly calm, spoke. "Drop it, Aisha. Forget Silas. Forget everything you think you know." Aisha's breath caught in her throat. "Who is this?" she managed, her voice barely a whisper. The voice chuckled, a cold, dry sound. "Someone who knows what you're doing. Someone who knows where your children sleep at night. Maya and Leo are such sweet kids, aren't they?" A jolt of pure terror shot through Aisha, paralyzing her. She dropped the phone as if burned, her face pale, the children's brightly colored toys scattered innocently on the floor in stark contrast to the venomous threat. They weren't just watching her. They were too inside her life, and they knew her greatest vulnerability. The illusion of safety, even within her own home, shattered completely. The diner hummed with a different kind of energy now, stripped of its usual patrons. Aisha paced, the ledger clutched tight. "They know," she stated, her voice tight with suppressed panic. "They called. They know about Silas. They know about Kumagus." Brenda, perched on a stool, listened with a grim face, her gaze drifting to Maya and Leo, sleeping soundly on makeshift beds in the staff room. The sight of the children, so vulnerable, was all the argument Aisha needed. "Okay, kid," Brenda finally said, pushing off the stool. "What's the plan?" "We ain't got much, but we got this diner." Aisha's eyes lit up, a spark of the old coder returning. "We make this diner a fortress." Scrambling through the back office, she unearthed old webcams, discarded baby monitors, and a tangle of wires. Brenda, surprisingly agile, began nailing boards over windows, her movements quick and purposeful. Aisha, meanwhile, tapped into the diner's ancient PA system, a relic from the 50s. "This isn't just for calling orders anymore," she murmured, a flicker of a dangerous smile touching her lips. "Now, it's our tripwire." Days bled into nights within the diner's back room, now a chaotic nexus of repurposed tech. Aisha, fueled by stale coffee and fierce determination, transformed it into her command center. Every old security camera, every discarded microphone, every piece of forgotten wiring became part of a new, intricate web. She soldered, coded, and configured, her fingers dancing across keyboards like a virtuoso. The diner's old point-of-sale system, once used for greasy receipts, now housed a secure, encrypted server, a digital vault for Silas's ledger, and her burgeoning collection of digital evidence. Cables snaked across the floor, connecting monitors that displayed grainy feeds from hidden cameras in the kitchen, the parking lot, even the restrooms. This makeshift room, smelling of ozone and desperation, was more than just a workstation. It was a testament to her reawakened skills, a digital fortress mirroring the growing strength within her. She was no longer just a waitress. She was a shield. Aisha knew the data she sent would catch Morales' eye. Carefully curated, encrypted, and delivered through untraceable channels, each packet contained a sliver of truth from Silas's ledger, cross-referenced with her own digital digging. She didn't expect a reply, not yet. But she imagined him there, late at night in his sterile office, his brow furrowing over the anonymous email. He would scrutinize it, of course, dissecting every byte. He'd be cautious, a man wary of false leads. But the precision of the information, the verifiable names and dates, the subtle links to cold cases he'd shelved, it was designed to prick his professional curiosity. A pattern, she knew, would slowly begin to emerge in his meticulous mind, hinting at a network far larger and more insidious than he could have possibly suspected from a truck stop diner. "Mom, look!" Leo's excited shout echoed through the dusty diner basement. Aisha, wiping sweat from her brow, followed him to a forgotten storage room, crammed with rusted equipment and cobwebbed boxes. Beyond a stack of ancient arcade machines, Leo pointed to a faded, unmarked door. Aisha's tech curiosity flared. Behind it, they discovered a small, ancient server room humming faintly. It was a relic, but still powered. Leo's sharp eyes immediately spotted a faded sticker with a series of numbers. "That's like the number on the old coffee machine, Mom," he exclaimed. Aisha's mind raced. A common password. A simple, yet brilliant, oversight from a previous era. With Leo's help, she cracked the initial password, gaining access to old, encrypted data logs. The server, a ghost from the past, held tantalizing fragments. records of obscure transactions, coded messages, and dates stretching back years, hinting at the syndicate's deep, unsettling roots right here at the truck stop. A shiver ran down Aisha's spine. Closing time at the diner was usually a time for quiet exhaustion, but now it was a moment for reflection. Maya, crayons scattered around her, proudly presented a drawing, a crude map of the diner, complete with stick figures labeled "bad guys" and tiny squares marked "secret cameras." "They're watching, Mommy," she whispered, pointing to a shadowy corner. Leo, ever the analyst, traced a route on a napkin, connecting truck movements he'd observed in the parking lot to the vague routes mentioned in the ledger. "The big trucks only stop on Tuesdays and Fridays, Mom," he noted seriously. Aisha knelt, pulling them close, a bittersweet wave washing over her. Her children, so innocent, yet so perceptive. They were absorbing more than she'd ever intended, understanding the unseen dangers. Their tiny, innocent contributions were a constant reminder of the stakes, deepening her resolve and solidifying the fierce, protective love that fueled her fight. The scent of stale coffee and desperation had become Aisha's constant companion, but a new aroma cut through it a few days later, expensive cologne, announcing a presence that felt out of place. Liam, a former colleague from her software development days, walked into the diner, his slick smile as perfectly tailored as his suit. "Aisha? Is that really you?" he exclaimed, his voice a little too loud, a little too eager. "Heard through the grapevine you were having some troubles. I mean, after the layoff and then... well, you know." He gestured vaguely, his eyes darting around the half-empty diner. "I could help, you know. Technical stuff. Clean up that digital footprint. Get you back on your feet." Aisha forced a weary smile. Liam had always been the kind of man who smelled opportunity even in a dumpster fire. His offer felt less like help and more like an investment in her misfortune. Still, a flicker of something close to hope ignited within her, quickly dimmed by a familiar unease. Some lefect stactus T5, she thought, remembering his past. Some lefectus T5 stactus Steve. "Thanks, Liam," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "I'll keep that in mind." The diner's back room, Aisha's makeshift command center, glowed with the stark light of multiple monitors. Liam, perched on a stool, tapped away at a separate terminal she'd grudgingly provided. He was supposedly optimizing her network, but Aisha's coder's instinct screamed otherwise. He kept requesting access to obscure directories, pushing for admin privileges with a casualness that was anything but. Her fingers danced across her own keyboard, a silent diagnostic running in the background. Lines of code scrolled, revealing a hidden process, a back door. An attempt to exfiltrate data, not clean it. The realization hit Aisha like a physical blow, a cold dread spreading through her chest. Liam wasn't helping her. He was compromising her. The subtle clues clicked into place. His overly specific questions about her data storage, his furtive glances when he thought she wasn't looking, the almost imperceptible changes in her network's traffic patterns. The son of Hunchert's working for them, the thought burned. The man she'd once shared late-night coding sessions with, who'd celebrated her promotions, was a snake in the grass, a spy for the syndicate. The betrayal was profound, not just of her trust, but of the very idea of solidarity she'd clung to. She felt a surge of anger, quickly followed by a chilling clarity. This wasn't just a breach, it was an intellectual challenge. Later that night, the diner was quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerators. Aisha found Liam in a secluded booth, pretending to review some code. She approached him, her movements calm, her expression unreadable. "Liam," she began, her voice soft, almost conversational. "Funny thing about digital footprints. They're never truly clean, are they? Especially when someone's trying to leave a trail in the wrong direction." Liam's head snapped up, his slick smile faltering. "What are you talking about, Aisha? I'm just trying to help." His eyes darted nervously, a bead of sweat tracing a path down his temple. "Are you?" Aisha's gaze was unwavering, piercing through his practiced composure. "Or are you trying to copy my entire network and feed it to Elias Thorne?" The name hit him like a physical blow. Liam visibly flinched, his face paling. "Thorne? I don't know any Thorne." "Don't lie to me, Liam." Aisha's voice was still calm, but it held a new, steely edge. "I know what you're doing. I know who you're working for. But I'm offering you a way out. Cooperate with me. Tell me everything, and maybe, just maybe, You won't end up as another one of Thorne's loose ends." Liam stammered, his bravado crumbling. He pressured me, said he'd ruin me, my family. He knows everything. He's the head of the whole operation, Elias Thorne. He runs things along the interstate. My handlers, they report directly to him." Desperation laced his words, the syndicate's chilling power momentarily overshadowing his own treachery. Aisha listened, absorbing every panicked admission. Back in her command center, Aisha's mind raced, Liam's terrified admissions replaying like a broken record. His betrayal had been a poison, but she could distill an antidote. Thorne thinks he's getting intel? Fine, he'll get intel. She began to work, her fingers flying across the keyboard with renewed purpose. Her plan was simple, elegant, and ruthless. Turn Liam into a conduit for disinformation. She created a sophisticated honeypot system, a digital mirage designed to look like her core network. Within it, she planted carefully crafted, misleading data, false vulnerabilities, decoy targets, misdirections about her true capabilities and intentions. "Let him successfully exfiltrate this," she murmured to herself, a confident smirk playing on her lips. "Let him report back that my defenses are weak, that I'm focusing on the wrong targets, that I'm planning a move that leads directly into a dead end." This wasn't just about protecting herself. It was about weaponizing deception. She was no longer just reacting to their threats. She was shaping their perception, playing a dangerous game of digital chess. Her growth from a reactive victim to a proactive strategist was complete. She was turning the tables, using their own tools of espionage against them, and the satisfaction was immense. Agent Morales stared at his monitor, the late-night quiet of his office broken only by the hum of his computer. Another anonymous data dump had just arrived, encrypted and untraceable, yet chillingly precise. This one included Liam's planted information, a summary of Elias Thorne's activities, and a web of connections that spanned state lines and implicated powerful figures. He cross-referenced the new data with his own intelligence, his cold cases, the whispers he dismissed as urban legends. Shell companies, suspicious cargo manifests, disappearances that had never added up. The sheer scale and sophistication of the syndicate, of Thorne's reach, was staggering. A grim realization dawned on him. The unassuming waitress from the truck stop diner, the one he'd initially dismissed as a paranoid conspiracy theorist, had been right all along. More than right, she was clearly a brilliant strategist, feeding him exactly what he needed, exactly when he needed it, while protecting her own anonymity. Morales slammed his fist on the desk, the sound echoing in the silent office. "Damn it," he muttered, reaching for his phone. He dialed a secure line, his professional determination now infused with a desperate urgency. "This is Morales. Get me Director Hayes. We have a problem. A big one. And I think I just found our key witness." The stage was set. The city lights glittered far below Elias Thorne's penthouse office. A sterile, silent sanctuary high above the chaos he orchestrated. Thorne, a man whose suit seemed tailored from shadow, sat at a polished obsidian desk, reviewing digital reports. His jaw tightened, clave loose ends. Aisha Sterling, a waitress at a forgotten truck stop, had become an unacceptable anomaly in his meticulously controlled network. Liam's intel, though delivered with expected servility, was amateurish at best, laced with the predictable anxieties of a man caught between two worlds. Thorne dismissed it, and Liam, with a flick of his wrist. It was time for a final, decisive action. "Clean this up," he murmured to the empty air, his voice a low, cold hum. "No more distractions." A single, chilling smile briefly touched his lips, reflecting in the glass of the towering window. The sheer inconvenience of it all. Aisha's face, illuminated by the glow of her command center monitors, filled half the split screen. On the other, Agent Morales' grim expression acknowledged her presence. The encrypted connection hummed with a newfound trust. "Miss Sterling," Morales began, a rare note of respect in his voice, "I owe you an apology. My initial skepticism was unfounded. You've uncovered a network far more insidious than we imagined." Aisha nodded, a quiet triumph in her eyes. No apologies needed, Agent. We're past that. What matters now is putting Thorne away. They dove into the plan. Aisha, the digital architect, would craft the lure. A vulnerable data transfer, seemingly exposed. Morales, the federal hammer, would position his team to move in once Thorne's men were ensnared in Aisha's digital cage. It's high risk, Miss Sterling, Morales warned, his brow furrowed. He'll be desperate. Aisha's gaze hardened. Desperate men make mistakes, and I'm not running anymore. Later that night, the diner's back room, now Aisha's command center, felt charged with electric anticipation. Brenda stood beside her, a wary but determined figure, while Morales' voice crackled through the comms. Aisha pulled up a detailed schematic of the diner on the main monitor, highlighting key points. We bait him with the false data transfer, she explained, her finger tracing glowing lines. Liam's success will make them overconfident. When they breach the diner, they'll enter a digital labyrinth. Old PA system for disorienting sound loops, modified wiring for localized EMP bursts, even the ventilation system for temperature fluctuations. Brenda shifted, her eyes wide. Sounds like something out of a spy movie. It's a digital cage, Aisha corrected, and the diner's old infrastructure is the perfect camouflage. Brenda, you'll be my eyes and ears on the floor, guiding them into the traps. Brenda swallowed hard but nodded, a grim resolve settling on her face. Just tell me where to aim the mop. In the staff room, Maya and Leo slept soundly, their small chests rising and falling in rhythmic peace. Aisha watched them, a profound ache of love and fear tightening her chest. Their innocent faces, illuminated by the dim nightlight, were her anchor, her reason. Trickle, 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 trickle. Trickle, 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 trickle. Trickle, 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 trickle. Trickle, 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 trickly mind. A sacred vow. She pulled a crumpled receipt from her pocket. The one that had started this whole journey, and on the back wrote a small note. Shumna by dearest Maya and Leo, if you're reading this, know that Daddy would be so proud. Mommy loves you more than words can say. Be brave. Be kind. And remember, sometimes the smallest person can make the biggest difference. Quadagwydrat sprues. She tucked it under Leo's pillow. A silent promise. A desperate safeguard. The world outside was a storm, but in this quiet moment, her resolve was absolute. Aisha's command center pulsed with a low, rhythmic hum. The diner outside was a cavern of shadows, silent and empty. Then, the first thermal signatures bloomed on her monitors. Distant, then closer. A convoy of black SUVs crawling like hungry insects towards the truck stop. Brenda, clutching a worn shotgun discreetly beneath the counter of the darkened diner, whispered through her earpiece. They're here, Aisha, just like you said. The calm before the storm shattered as headlights pierced the inky blackness, sweeping across the parking lot. Engines idled, heavy and menacing. Aisha's breath caught, a surge of adrenaline sharpening her focus. Her fingers hovered over the console, poised for battle. The storm had arrived. The night outside the diner was a canvas of shadows and anticipation. Inside, the darkness was absolute, save for the faint, rhythmic hum of dormant kitchen equipment. Elias Thorne's enforcers, a squad of 6 men in tactical gear, moved through the main dining area like specters, their flashlights cutting harsh beams through the gloom. Aisha watched them from her command center, her fingers dancing across the repurposed diner console. Her heart hammered, but her mind was a cool, calculating machine. Empty, a gruff voice crackled over her rigged comms. Thorne's lieutenant, a man named Crowley, sweep the kitchen and storage. She's probably hiding. Aisha didn't wait. A low, guttural growl echoed from the kitchen speaker, followed by the clatter of dropped pans. Lights flickered erratically in the storage room, then plunged back into darkness. Crowley's men flinched, weapons raising, their confident sweep devolving into a cautious, confused crawl. They're jumpy. Brenda's voice, a dry whisper from a hidden nook near the pantry, reached Aisha. Good. Send him through the grease trap entrance. I've got a surprise waiting. Aisha grinned, a flicker of satisfaction in her tired eyes. Welcome to the trap, boys. The kitchen became a stage for Aisha's digital puppetry. Crowley's men, now split into smaller units, moved with increasing frustration. Comms are down, a voice yelled, static ripping through Aisha's earpiece, a localized EMP burst precisely timed. Night vision goggles flickered, then died, plunging half the team into sudden blinding darkness. Aisha worked the old diner systems with the finesse of a concert pianist. The ventilation fans roared to life, first blasting superheated air, then icy drafts, making the enforcers shiver and sweat in quick succession. What the hell is this place? Crowley cursed, his voice tight with growing panic. Aisha tracked their confused movements on her multi-screen display, a map of the diner's intricate wiring glowing under her touch. Every vent, every circuit, every ancient speaker was now an extension of her will. She was a ghost in the machine, turning their superior numbers into a liability. You thought you were hunting a waitress. You just walked into a coder's nightmare. The raw power of her intellect, dormant for too long, surged within her, a quiet, exhilarating hum. Crowley, disoriented and increasingly isolated, stumbled into the diner's main entrance, his pistol sweeping wildly. The flickering emergency lights barely illuminated the space, but it was enough. Brenda materialized from the shadows near the counter, a figure of unexpected resolve. She was older, yes, her movements not as fluid as a trained operative, but her eyes held the fire of years spent surviving. Before Crowley could react, she swung an old, heavy cast-iron skillet, connecting with a sickening thud against his weapon arm. The pistol clattered to the floor. "You ain't touching her, kids," Brenda snarled, her voice rough, as she brought the butt of her own shotgun, kept hidden beneath the counter for decades, up to his chest. Crowley gasped, winded, staring at the diner owner with a mixture of shock and pain. He hadn't seen her coming. Aisha, watching through her camera feed, felt a surge of pride and a fierce protectiveness for her unlikely ally. Brenda, the cynical diner owner, was a warrior. Courage, true courage, doesn't need a uniform. Outside, the truck stop parking lot erupted in a symphony of wailing sirens and flashing blue lights. FBI vehicles, black and imposing, swarmed the asphalt, their tires squealing as they cut off Thorne's remaining enforcers. Agent Morales, grim-faced and resolute, led his team with practiced precision. "South entrance clear, moving to Main." He barked into his comms, his voice a steady anchor amidst the controlled chaos. Thorne's men, caught between Aisha's internal traps and the FBI's external assault, put up a desperate fight. But Aisha's real-time intel, fed directly to Morales' encrypted tablet, guided the agents like an invisible hand. 2 hostiles, west corner of the lot, behind the tanker truck. Aisha's calm voice cut through Morales' earpiece. His team moved, neutralizing the targets with swift, efficient force. The tide was turning, but one crucial piece remained missing. Thorne. The kingpin, the mastermind, was still out there, somewhere in the diner's labyrinthine layout. Elias Thorne, his face contorted in a mask of rage and desperation, found himself in a dusty, forgotten back office. He'd seen his men fall, heard the sirens, felt the walls of his empire crumbling. He knew of a hidden tunnel, a secret passage used for illicit deliveries, leading away from the diner into the old service tunnels beneath the interstate. He'd assumed it was his private escape route, but as he fumbled with the hidden latch, the old security monitor on the wall flickered to life, projecting an image of the tunnel ahead. A collapsed, debris-strewn passage, seemingly impassable. "No, impossible," Thorne muttered, his eyes wide with disbelief. He shoved at the latch again, but the illusion held. He was trapped. Aisha, watching from her command center, allowed herself a small, triumphant smile. She'd rerouted the diner's ancient security feed, digitally inserting a false image of a blocked tunnel, knowing Thorne's arrogance would make him trust his secret intelligence. "You underestimated a waitress, Elias, and that was your first and final mistake." His frustrated shouts echoed through the diner, the sound of a kingpin outsmarted. Elias Thorne was shoved into the diner's makeshift command center, his expensive suit rumpled, his hands cuffed behind his back. The sheer audacity of the setup, screens glowing with data, cables snaking across the floor, the hum of repurposed diner equipment, starkly contrasted with the arrogant disbelief etched on his face. He'd expected a raid, maybe a desperate struggle, but not this. Not a tech fortress born from a greasy spoon. Aisha stood beside Agent Morales, Brenda hovering near the door, a silent sentinel. The air crackled with a triumphant, righteous anger that was almost palpable. "Welcome to the real command center, Mr. Thorne." Aisha's voice was steady, devoid of the tremor that had once plagued her. "This is where your empire crumbles." With a flick of her wrist, she initiated a live, encrypted broadcast. The diner's large, faded outdoor screens, usually reserved for specials and trucker ads, flickered to life. First, the stark, damning entries of Silas's ledger. Then, Aisha's painstakingly compiled digital evidence, offshore accounts, shell companies, and finally, the blurred, heartbreaking faces of the trafficked victims. Thorne's disbelief twisted into raw terror. Thorne lunged forward, straining against his cuffs, his carefully constructed composure finally shattering. "You can't do this! I'll give you anything! Money, a new life, a clean slate for you and your brats." The word was a venomous hiss. Aisha's face remained impassive. "My children are not for sale, Mr. Thorne." His threats, once so potent, now felt hollow. "You think you've won? I'll find them! I'll make you regret this!" Aisha's eyes hardened. She clicked a control. Silas's raspy, dying words echoed through the room. Asterisk, "Don't let them win. Protect the kids." Thorne flinched. The sound of his victim's final plea, a spectral accusation. "He gave his life to expose you," Aisha said, her voice a cold, firm rejection of his desperate pleas. "And I promised him I wouldn't let them win." Agent Morales stepped forward, hand on his sidearm, but Aisha waved him back. This was her battle, her justice. The "Live" indicator on the main screen pulsed a vibrant, defiant red. Outside, the truck stop transformed into a media circus. News vans, their satellite dishes raised like hungry vultures, converged on the diner. Morales, having tipped off a trusted contact, ensured the world was watching. The diner's outdoor screens, now a national broadcast, flashed Aisha's compiled evidence. The ledger entries, the hidden cameras, the undeniable links to judges, city council members, and police chiefs, it was all laid bare. Aisha's voice, calm and resolute, narrated the damning facts, a quiet storm of truth breaking over the airwaves. News anchors, their faces plastered on the screens, reacted with shocked incredulity, then righteous fury. The avalanche of truth was indeed burying Thorne's carefully cultivated reputation. It wasn't just a local scandal. It was a national exposé, a testament to the power of a single mother's digital vengeance. Flashing news cameras illuminated Thorne's horrified face, a captured kingpin watching his empire crumble in real time. The command center now buzzed with FBI agents, securing evidence and processing the syndicate's captured enforcers. Morales approached Thorne, his expression grim but satisfied. "Elias Thorne, you are under arrest for human trafficking, bribery, racketeering, and conspiracy to commit murder. You have the right to remain silent." Thorne, utterly defeated, offered no resistance. As Morales recited the charges, Thorne's eyes met Aisha's. There was no defiance left, only a flicker of grudging respect, a silent acknowledgement of her victory. Aisha watched him being led away, his once imposing figure diminished by handcuffs and public humiliation. A quiet sense of justice settled over her, not gloating, but a profound relief. The long struggle was over. She had done it. Morales offered a weary but satisfied smile, a silent nod of approval. The exhaustion was heavy, but beneath it a new strength had taken root, a profound sense of purpose. Moments after Thorne's departure, Maya and Leo emerged from their hiding place in the staff room, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and profound pride. They had heard snippets, understood enough. Leo, ever analytical, pointed to a detail on one of Aisha's screens, a final, encrypted message from Liam, revealing offshore accounts Thorne had believed untouchable. Even in his betrayal, Liam had provided one last breadcrumb. Aisha knelt, pulling her children close, inhaling the scent of their innocent hair. Their small hands, so often a source of comfort, now represented the very reason she had fought. Their presence, their unwavering trust, had been her greatest motivation, their small contributions invaluable. "We did it," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Maya, her eyes bright, asked, "Are the bad people gone now, Mommy?" "Yes, sweetheart," Aisha replied, tears pricking her eyes. "They're all gone." A look of profound love passed between them, a quiet joy of safety finally achieved. The morning sun, usually a harsh glare over the asphalt, now cast a gentle, golden light over the truck-stop diner. Media vans had pulled out, leaving behind only the lingering scent of stale coffee and a profound sense of peace. The diner itself, though bearing the scars of the night's battle, a shattered window, a dented counter, stood defiant, a symbol of their unexpected victory. Brenda surveyed it all, a weary but proud smile playing on her lips. "Never thought I'd see the day this old grease trap became a fortress," she drawled, wiping down a still intact table. Agent Morales, his uniform slightly rumpled but his gaze firm, approached Aisha, who was watching the sunrise paint the horizon. "Aisha," he said, extending a hand, "you did it. You exposed a network we've been chasing for years. You're brilliant." Aisha met his eyes, a quiet satisfaction settling in her chest. "It wasn't just me," she replied, glancing at Brenda. "It was all of us. And a dying trucker who refused to let them win." The systemic corruption, once an impenetrable wall, had crumbled, thanks to a waitress, her tech, and an old diner. Months later, Aisha Sterling stood in a modern, glass-walled office, far from the greasy hum of the diner, no longer a waitress but the CEO of the Sterling Foundation. Her voice, clear and confident, resonated through the conference room as she addressed her new team. "Our mission is simple: leverage technology to track and disrupt human trafficking rings, provide resources for victims, and offer legal aid to families fighting powerful corruption." Agent Morales, now a trusted board member, nodded approvingly. Brenda, surprisingly comfortable in a tailored suit, sat beside him, offering a gruff but heartfelt, "Damn right." At the end of the polished conference table, Maya sketched diligently, while Leo, with his usual intense focus, studied a complex flowchart. "Mommy," Maya piped up, "can our app find all the missing kids?" Aisha smiled. "That's the goal, sweetheart, to make sure no child ever disappears again." Leo, ever the pragmatist, added, "And our encrypted network will be unhackable, right?" Aisha winked. "Absolutely, Leo. Absolutely." In her private office, Aisha's gaze fell upon a framed, leather-bound ledger, now a centerpiece on her wall. Silas's legacy. It wasn't money he'd left her, but a burden of truth. A heavy, undeniable truth that had forced her to confront the darkness, and, in doing so, discover her own light. "He trusted me," asterisk, she thought, tracing the ornate script on the cover. "He gave me the power to enact change, not just survive." The journey had been terrifying, exhilarating, and ultimately transformative. From a laid-off software developer struggling to pay rent, she had become a strategic protector, a beacon of hope. The immense power of ordinary people, she realized, wasn't in their titles or their bank accounts, but in their courage to fight for what's right. That evening, Aisha tucked Maya and Leo into bed in their new home. It wasn't a mansion, but a modest, welcoming house overlooking the city, filled with the warmth of family, not the cold weight of expectation. "New adventures tomorrow, Mommy?" Maya whispered, already half asleep. "Always, my love," Aisha replied, kissing her forehead. Leo, still awake, looked up at her. "Daddy would be proud, wouldn't he?" "That we helped stop the bad people." Aisha's heart swelled. "More than proud, Leo. He'd be so proud." She pulled the blanket higher, feeling a profound sense of peace wash over her. They were safe. She had found her true calling, a purpose far greater than she could have ever imagined. True wealth, she knew now, wasn't measured in dollars, but in the innocent faces of her children, safe and sound. The next morning, Aisha found herself at a different truck-stop diner, miles from her old life, yet feeling a familiar pull. She watched a young waitress, no older than 22, juggling 3 tables, her exhaustion evident despite her hurried movements. A baby carrier sat discreetly behind the counter. Aisha ordered coffee, left a generous tip, and then, with a knowing smile, placed a copy of Silas's old, empty case file on the table, along with a simple, handwritten note. "This is the beginning, not the end. Trust yourself. You're stronger than you know. Salumid." She watched through the diner window as the young mother picked up the file, her brow furrowed in confusion, then saw a flicker of hope kindle in her tired eyes. Aisha turned to her car, where Maya and Leo waited. Somewhere, another story was about to begin.